Welcome back to Dating Intentionally. I'm Talia. I'm sharing no nonsense advice for navigating modern dating with confidence and ease. Whether you've been on dozens of dates or you're just getting started, I believe dating can be fun. And before we jump in, I just want to say thank you so much for being here, for following, rating, reviewing, sharing, commenting, or interacting with the show anyway. I just appreciate it so much. And I'm glad that these episodes are helping you feel less alone and more confident in your dating journey. Thank you, as always, for submitting your dating dilemmas. I have three for you today. The first one is about navigating the early days of a connection after they've revealed that they have a mental health issue. Then we have one about figuring out where to live when you're long distance. And the last one is about healing from a confusing situationship. You can submit your dating and relationship dilemmas through the form in the show notes. You can also email me at dating.intentionallypod@gmail.com if that's easier, and you'll always be anonymous if I read it on the show. So thank you for submitting, and let's do it. All right, here's the first one. I met this guy, 34 male, on an app and had pretty good conversations before exchanging numbers and moving out of the app. I, 33 female, could tell he was inquisitive and was a good conversationalist, which I value and appreciate. We decided to have a phone call before meeting physically, which I thought was a good idea. The call went pretty well. However, he told me he is CPTSD diagnosed. He shared a little bit about his past in the last 5 years and that he's currently still recovering, seeking help, and he's on medication. He's also a therapist by profession and studying for his doctorate and was ordered by his doctor to take a sabbatical, but he's still practicing and meeting his clients. We have plans to meet up. However, we've not met up yet since the first call due to conflicting schedules. We stayed in touch via text and calls in the meantime, and his style of dating and expectation is daily texting throughout the day, every day, and phone calls every night or alternate nights. I've highlighted that this is a bit too much for me. He respected that. However, I'm still having a lot of second thoughts because of his condition and his expectations of an interaction, which seems very anxiety motivated and anxiety inducing. Are these red flags or should I give him a chance? I'm confused. I still have unresolved issues myself. Maybe I'm the problem. Thank you so much for sharing this. And I just want to say mental health issues are definitely something to be taken seriously. And I want to say that if you're dating and you have some kind of mental health issue or disorder, you are dateable. I wanted to share this story because I think it's an interesting perspective from the other side, from someone who is dating intentionally and not exactly sure what to do with this information. So, my take on this, honestly, is that there are red flags here to pay attention to that could be present because of his condition, but probably not, or maybe they're just not, they have nothing to do with it. But either way, I just want to point out that from what I understand, you have not yet met this person and he's already expecting or demanding that you chat on the phone every night or every other night and that you're in touch daily. That is the red flag for me, not the CPTSD, which he seems to be somewhat on top of by working with a doctor and seeking medication and help and all that. I'm all for a few pre-date phone calls and video chats, but expecting daily texting before you have even met is the issue here to me. Do you even have a date on the books? If you're local and this isn't long distance, always prioritize getting a date on the calendar and then you can plan a video call or a phone call with them in the meantime. That's fine. Daily calls and texting before meeting is a lot. If he's already giving you anxiety and you have not met yet, then I say it's best to move along. Dating in the early stages should feel more fun than anything else, and this doesn't sound fun at all. You sound like you're already feeling quite suffocated. My suggestion is to call him and say that after getting to know him a bit more, it's clear that you're not able to meet his needs for communication or that you have different communication needs, and it's just not the right fit for what you're looking for. You don't have to meet him in person to tell him this, and the sooner you do it, the better. And this is for all daters out there. If you find yourself getting attached to someone before you have even met them and you feel like you need to hear from them every day before you have gone on a date and seen them in person, I think it would be good to take a step back and reflect on why you are attaching so quickly to people you don't even know. That is worth working on. And if you're on the other side of that, it is 100% okay to gently say that you know it's not the right fit for you and you'd like to call it or move on. And of course, I commend the person who wrote in for speaking up and being like, hey, this is too much for me. It doesn't sound like it's a good match, though, because it sounds like this person you're dating, he still wants to talk every day. So, to get like clear on how much you should be texting and communicating in the early stages, I do have an episode for you all about momentum in dating, and you can listen to that one. It's number 93. And I have an episode about texting and like kind of the frequency and like how to kind of manage that. That's episode number 30. I also have a free texting guide. It's linked in the show notes for you. So, I want to touch on dating when you do have something like CPTSD, OCD, ADHD, or any mental health condition that your potential partner would want or need to know about. My personal view on this, and you can decide if this advice is a fit for you or not, is that you don't have to disclose this stuff before meeting. I have a few experiences being on the other side, like being in this woman's situation where a guy has disclosed something to me. But in my experience, they waited a few dates in, which felt way more appropriate. They waited until we built up some more trust to see if we even like each other, if there's alignment in relationship goals, because that's the stuff you need to figure out before any of this other information about a mental health issue is even relevant. Like, you don't have to share this stuff before you figured out if you actually like the person and want to get to know them more. You aren't defined by your mental health. There is more to you. So focus on that and seeing if you even gel with someone and if you're attracted to them or if you're aligned on relationship goals first. If you don't feel like this advice is a fit for you, I understand. I'm just sharing from the perspective of someone who's been on the receiving end of this information. So I hope this helps. And if you have any updates, please send them to me. You can DM me on Instagram at dating.intentionally or email me at datingintentionallypod@gmail.com. Thanks again for sharing this. Here is the next one. My girlfriend and I have been dating for 3 months. It's going great. I, 30 male, enjoy spending time with her, 35 female, and the sparks are wild. We've both been married before, so we really aren't wasting time. No BS is the motto. The problem is that she has a son with her former husband and feels tied to a large city 2 hours away where she currently lives. They co parent well, and she feels it is absolutely important for her son to be near his birth dad. At the same time, she agrees it makes economic and emotional sense to live in my hometown where I am currently. I feel tied here with my family and friends. I also support her dream for her son too. She has good reasons to be there, but wants to be here. I have good reasons to support her decision to stay, but want ultimately what's best for her and her son. She says it would be different if her ex was treating her or her son poorly, but I kind of want to point out preventing your kid's mother from being able to live the life she wants by keeping her in an economically unstable position is treating her son poorly. Interesting. We don't feel like we can move forward with our relationship until we figure this out. We've initiated a 4 stage process to hash this out following the Gottman method. But what are your thoughts? Signed, Hopeful Romantic. Well, that is quite a predicament. Thank you so much for sharing this. I am excited to get into it. I just want to say I had to look up the 4 stage process that you mentioned and couldn't find exactly what you were talking about because the Gottman method, is there is a lot there, but I'm really curious to know what this 4 stage process is. I tried to find it. Maybe I'll keep looking after this episode, but like I have no idea what that means, but I would love to know. And if you're listening and you know what this is, please send me a link because I found a lot of things, but nothing said like 4 stage process to hash it to manage a conflict here. So, but I am really glad that you have an action plan. I think it's admirable that you and this person that you're dating want to explore this head on, and you have a no BS approach. You both know what you want. Like I like the intentionality of this. But this is tough because you don't have a lot of leverage in the situation. From what you've shared, it seems like a lot of it rides on what she decides to do. And, you don't want to move, which I get. And it's tough. It's a really tough situation. So this is my advice. And you might not like to hear this, but I encourage you to put this decision aside for a while. This is unfortunately one of the downfalls of rushing things in a relationship, even with this no BS intentional approach. Even though you know what you want, you're still only 3 months in and you're already at this sticking point. And, I'm kind of putting myself in her shoes. Like, she might be leaning towards staying in her current location, which might be more expensive, but has a lot going for it in terms of her son's life. And, she might be leaning towards staying there because that's been her priority for longer than you've been in the picture. You don't have enough of a foundation necessarily for her to make a big move like that. And if she didn't have a kid, it might be different, but uprooting her kid's life for a 3-month relationship is a lot. I know you're probably not thinking of doing this now, but I can understand why it'd be hard to really think about that decision when you've only known each other for 3 months. So my advice is to delay and continue getting to know each other and stop focusing so much on this issue. I'm not sure it needs to be solved immediately. Can you continue dating and building a strong relationship before you come to this decision? If this was a deal breaker for her, she probably wouldn't date someone who lives 2 hours away and has no flexibility to move. I'm not saying you're the issue or that you should move for her. It just seems that she isn't super clear on what's a deal breaker or how flexible she can be. I get her position because I wouldn't move myself and my kid for someone I dated for 3 months, no matter how good the relationship was. I think you need to give it at least 9 months before deciding what to do. I also don't think that her ex-husband is necessarily holding her back. You mentioned, the best thing for her ex-husband to do would be to let her go. It's not like he's keeping her there. He just seems like they co-parent well and they share their son, and she wants her son to be near his dad. Like that makes sense for a lot of reasons. So I don't think that he is holding her back and making her stay. It doesn't sound like, at least. Obviously, we don't know all the details. So, to avoid this potentially deal breaking choice looming over you in the relationship, I recommend putting a date on the calendar in the future to come back to this decision. And in the meantime, enjoy getting to know each other. And I do have, a little bit of experience with this, obviously not with a child involved, which makes things a lot more complicated. But I've moved twice for people I've dated. I moved from New York to Seattle with my ex, and then from Seattle to the Bay Area with my husband. But these decisions came after at least a year of dating in both scenarios. If I was dating someone who wanted to make these decisions at 3 months in, I'd be really skeptical. It feels like a huge rush, even now at 32, right? I'm also a no BS person. I really encourage you to zoom out and ask yourself why you need to figure this out now, and what's another 6 months together, with the 2 hours of long distance. What is that really going to cost you in terms of time, especially if you think she's the one? If you have any updates, reach out. I'd love to hear what you think of this advice. You can DM me on Instagram at dating.intentionally or email me at datingintentionallypod@gmail.com. Okay, here is the last one, and I think this is a very common outcome of a situationship. I'm 43 female, and I met a guy, 40 male. We're long distance. We met on a dating app while he was in my city. He wanted to meet for dinner, and I said I didn't think it was a good idea since he didn't live in my town. I should have stuck to my guns. We met and ended up staying in touch, emailing back and forth, and eventually moved to phone calls. It started out flirty, and at one point, he said he wasn't in a place for romantic love and that he wanted friendship. We kept this up for a few months. I asked a few times for clarity on what exactly we were and got vague answers and misdirection. Just when I wouldn't hear from him anymore, he would pop up and I would be charmed all over again. We had 2 FaceTimes during this time that I practically had to beg for. I finally asked him through text, "Is this all we will ever be?" I said that I can accept what it is, but I wanted to know where his head was at. All he responded was, "That's fair," and then changed the subject. He confused me left and right, but I enjoyed talking to him and having that connection. But I never had the courage to say this isn't working for me. He would tell me things like he was stuck at a crossroads in his life and he had been there for several years. Yesterday, we talked on the phone for about an hour, said goodnight, and that was that. Then he texted me about how much he values and respects me and we are friends, but something feels wrong and we have to stop talking while he figures it out. His mind isn't 100% right. He said that he has not met someone else and he's not talking to anyone else. He also asked me to not be mad at him. I tried calling him the next evening to talk it out, but he didn't pick up and hasn't called me back. I'm beyond hurt and confused. He respects me, but essentially broke up with me through text. He wouldn't pick up the phone and talk to me like a person. There was no discussion. And what did he mean when he said he doesn't want to talk for a while? How long is a while? Is he going to pop up in a week or months from now? I just feel so awful about myself and keep asking myself, what did I do wrong? I already miss him so much, but I keep asking myself, what do I miss? Signed, Brokenhearted. This is tough, and I'm sending you a huge hug. This is so, so hard. And I want to acknowledge just how painful and confusing it is when people lead us on or when we have hope that a connection will turn into more, but never does. It's infuriating when that person just keeps popping up, never quite allowing you to let go. So, I want to shed light on a few red flags so that if you ever run into this again, and I hope you don't, you'll know to cut it off immediately. I think it's okay to meet up with people passing through your town. Sometimes that can turn into something. But the first thing is that he said he wasn't in a place for romantic love, just for friendship. When someone says they're not in the right headspace to date, believe them. It doesn't matter how good the connection is or how strong the chemistry is. That is their truth. They're happy, to talk and flirt and have some banter or maybe hook up. But the second they say they're not ready to date or don't want to right now, just walk away if you are looking to date. Or in your mind, categorize them as a friend, not a potential date. When someone says they're not looking for a romantic connection, this isn't a challenge to you. This isn't a sign you need to wait for them to be ready. And this isn't an invitation to convince them to change their mind. This is a sign clear as day because they're literally telling you that they're not dating right now and that you shouldn't try to date them or pursue them. So when someone says this to you, it's a blessing. You don't have to stick around and find out later. They're telling you now that they're not ready or don't want it. So just leave it. That was all the clarity you needed, but I totally understand when you're caught up by someone's charm and the connection, it's hard to really see that and accept that. So since you kept talking, you said you asked for clarity and you got some vague answers. In the future, don't settle for this. And the trick to not settling for that is by saying what you want rather than asking where they are at mentally and emotionally. Say where you are at, say what you want, then go from there. Hearing the words come out of your own mouth and then hearing their vague reply will more often than not make the situation click for you. You are not on the same page, and maybe it's better if you move on. I know you might not see it now because you're still really hurting and you are allowed to hurt, but there are lessons here that will lead you to a connection with someone who doesn't confuse you, who you won't need to beg for a FaceTime call with, and who is very clear about where you stand with them. These situation breakups are really painful, but they're often a blessing in disguise. Some people, by the way, of any gender, will continue relationships where they get the attention and connection they crave while never giving anything more or committing or anything like that. And I don't think it's always malicious or intentional, but it seems like this guy that you were talking to kind of knew that you wanted more and he didn't. So he sent you that text because maybe he felt a little guilty. Like he just couldn't keep talking to you knowing that you wanted more and he didn't. Of course, I'm just speculating, you know, from what you shared, but that's what it seemed like happened on his end. You communicated to him a few times that you wanted more and he brushed it off. And if that happens again, that's your cue to either pull back a bit from that relationship so you're no longer being used or cut it off completely. I really hope that next time you have the courage to say, hey, this is not going to work for me, especially if this guy comes back. Here's the thing about the people who just keep popping up back into your DMs and your texts and your life, it's because you let them. You are actually in control here. You have the power and agency to say, you know what? I'm putting my energy into people who are consistent, and that is not you. I'm investing my time into relationships that make you feel secure, and that is not this. If he comes back, you can just block him and move on with your life, which I know is easier said than done. Or you can say, hey, guy, like, I've had some time to reflect, and I don't think this is a healthy friendship. So I would like to not talk anymore. And hopefully he will respect that and not talk to you, and then you won't have to block him. You said in your note that you feel awful about yourself, and I really hope that you can find it in you to show yourself compassion. These situationships inspire so much hope in us, especially when it's been so long since we felt that way about someone or had that kind of connection. And I want you to know you didn't do anything to cause him to act this way. He told you from the jump that he's at a crossroads and figuring stuff out. That has nothing to do with you. And please don't turn this into a story about how you weren't good enough for him to choose you because this is the truth. This man is not choosing anyone right now and you are very dateable. So please don't let this experience define your self worth. In the future, you can enforce your boundaries, see the signs quicker, and keep your heart open to folks who will actually treat you with respect. I hope this helped. Please let me know if you have any thoughts or updates. My inbox is always open. You can DM me on Instagram at dating.intentionally or email me at datingintentionallypod@gmail.com. And that's it for this week. If you have a dating dilemma you want to submit, you can share it in the show notes. There's a link there for you. And when you share a dilemma, it helps other people feel less alone. So thank you for your vulnerability. I really appreciate it. I want to thank you again for listening. Thanks for trusting me. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And don't forget, you're doing great. I'd love it if you share this episode with someone who is navigating dating and might need a little confidence boost or some tough love. And if any of these episodes have helped you in your journey, you can help me by leaving a stunning review on Apple or giving Dating Intentionally 5 stars on Spotify. I'd really appreciate it. Once again, I'm Talia. This has been Dating Intentionally, and I'll see you next time.